Oh well, I grew up on the planet forming space worms, where space worms can always be found. But here on Earth, as far as I can discern, there just ain't no space worms around. What can I do?
Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Theater Near You. My name is Kris Randazzo, and I'm joined this evening, as always, by expensive space assassin Paul Giroux.
Hondo.
And intergalactic banjo plucker Sean Doyle. We're back to our alphabetical lineup, and this month we went with Paul's pick for the letter H, which was the history of future folk. Sean and I went into this one completely blind. How did it pan out? Let's find out. But first, how are you, gentlemen?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say, but first, there's another movie we need to talk about.
Well, yes, I suppose that is true. I did not get a chance to watch Gigli. I tried to fit it into my schedule, but it was... This is actually a gauntlet week for me in podcast recording. I've had all 4 of my shows this week, and in fact, I just recorded and edited another show this morning. So I was a tad too busy to fit Gigli into my schedule, but I look forward to hearing you guys talk about it. So by all means, bake them away, toys.
There's always room for Gigli.
I was gonna say, I can't. You just.
I'm sorry, Sean.
It's just not okay anymore.
Well, I think I have a way for us to talk about Gigli, and still involve you, Kris. I think even though you didn't watch it because you're a slacker, I think I have an idea where you could still be involved in this. But we don't have to roll up our sleeves now and jump feet. That doesn't make sense. We don't have to talk. You asked how we are. I can tell you how I am.
Are you Gigli?
Oh yeah. I mean, that's a problem. I am Gigli, but yeah, no, I'm okay. These 2 weeks have been a mess because my school went remote. So I don't mind teaching remote, but at least if it's temporary. But like, I got a show to build, and I've had to do it without students. So that's been it's been kind of awful. And then like because the schedule changed. Then I'm like mired down by all this administrative stuff I have to do. Like you make changes, you got to like, do a bunch of paperwork and send people new calendars and all that stuff. And like, I'm like neck deep in a build and I'm trying to do all that stuff. So that's been a little bit of a mess.
Let me tell you what I heard on that section before you go on. COVID has prevented you from getting your normal child labor, so now you're having money issues?
That's an oversimplification, but I guess it's fair.
It's not inaccurate.
Yeah, it's not just child labor. They get something out of it. They're there because they want to be. I don't like. I already know how to build the set. Like it's about teaching my craft to a next generation of
unpaid child laborers.
Right.
You're passing the savings on to them.
But yeah, I don't know. We're all excited to be back next week. It'll be good.
I am remote right now because Jacqueline doesn't have COVID, which is great. Just found that out, but she's sick, so I don't want to get Chris's kids sick. So that's less wonderful. Hooray, other diseases? I don't even know what I'm cheering for anymore.
Is it okay for me to ask, were you marked safe from the vid last time? I remember last time you were like, safe.
Yeah, last time there was I had contact with someone who had contact with someone who got the vid, and but no, we were good then, and we're good now. I mean, she's not good, but she doesn't have COVID, so that's great.
Just regular run-of-the-mill sick.
Yeah, a flu or something. I don't know. Which means I'll probably have that the next day or so, which will also be awesome.
Well, at least it's nice to be able to plan ahead,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like when Karen or one of the kids gets sick, I'm like, all right, I'll be sick in a couple of days, so I should probably work extra hard to not be sick now.
Yeah.
Start popping those weird vitamin C Alka-Seltzer jobbies.
Yeah, get some of that in there.
I just saw this whole thing about how that vitamin C thing's a myth created by.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it doesn't actually help with any. Like, there's no scientific data that shows extra vitamin C helps to reduce the effects of the common cold or flu or speed it up or nothing. I mean, vitamin C is good for you, so it's not hurting you. But the whole thing's just like some guy who was like in like the early 1920s was just like, oranges are gonna save the whole world. And, I mean,
It was probably because of scurvy. They're like, hey, oranges fix scurvy. I bet oranges will fix everything.
Well, let me tell you, the placebo effect that it creates then works on me because I don't think I get sick a lot. Like, and when I do get sick, I usually bounce back pretty quick. But then when I'm worried about something, like when somebody else is sick, I'm like, oh, I got to start taking this stuff. And like, I've convinced myself into thinking that it is working for me. So,
and that the placebo effect is real, yeah. And fun note, I don't know the science on this either, but I know last time my little sister had a bad flu or whatever. I say last time, it was probably 3-4 years ago. I don't know. She went to urgent care or whatever. She figured she needed an antibiotic or whatever, and the doctor was like, "No, you know what? You should go home, and if you have some whiskey, you should pour that in some tea with like honey and lemon." And that'll. And she was like, "My name's Kat Doyle. You think I didn't already do a hot toddy today? Like that's obvious." But the fact that a doctor, even an urgent care doctor, is recommending it makes me think maybe there's some science there. I don't know.
let me tell you what would be a great spin-off podcast. A podcast where the three of us pretended to know anything about science.
Let's start giving medical advice.
Pick a science topic and talk about it. That would go poorly.
Where the hell were we? What are we talking about? What happened? Oh, we were going to talk about Gigli, but we didn't ask Kris. Kris, how are you?
Oh yeah, how are you, Kris?
I'm doing okay. I'm nobody's currently sick in our house. Getting back in the swing of things. I was just telling Paul earlier this evening, every part of me hurts because I decided to, stop eating like crazy and exercise again. And it was going well for a while, and then everything in my life caught fire, and I stopped doing that and stress ate because that's what I do. I love eating my feelings, but I figured it was time to get back on my bullshit, and here I am, sore as hell. But outside of that, I'm doing pretty good. I was just kind of, while you guys were talking, glancing over to the side and noticed that I appear to be one of the only people I know who's actually enjoying this Boba Fett show. So, right.
Ooh, yeah. I'm not into it.
And I'm not saying it's a masterclass. I am very, very entertained, though. I'm quite happy with it. But then again, I don't really have an attachment to Boba Fett to begin with. I know a lot of people are really pissed off, like, Boba Fett's not being Boba Fett. I'm like, dude stood there for like a while, and then he got knocked into a Sarlacc pit. Boba Fett was a nothing burger, man.
I guess here's what I'll say about it, and I don't want to get too deep into it because I don't think we should do spoilers or talk about all the parts of the show. But like Boba Fett is cooler the less you know about him. Like I kind of think I've said this before. I kind of think he's like the Joker. I think it's like he's a cool badass, and the less you know, you can sympathize with all of his past and all that stuff like that, the cooler he is. Like, he just needs to be like a badass bounty hunter that strolls in with a cool voice and kicks ass. Like, that's what's appealing about him. And like when they had that prequel movie where it was like, I'm gonna hold my dad's severed head in my hands and look towards the stars, and I will become a badass. Like, I didn't want that. I didn't need it. Like, I just want him to walk in and be cool. So, I mean, like, I think in the vein of The Mandalorian, how this is kind of a space western, there's some cool stuff about it. But like, this guy ain't no Pedro Pascal. Like, that guy is cool when he has the helmet on, when he has the helmet off, when he's just, you hear his voice, like, he's compelling. Like, this guy, they were kind of stuck with the dude that did it in the prequel movies, and I mean, he's all right, but I don't think, I'm not like blown away.
See, I really liked him in Mandalorian. I like that whole bit, and I'm curious to see that kind of version of him show up again. Like, I'm very curious to see where it's going. It's got its problems. Like, for sure. It's got some freaking problems. I don't know if you watched episode 3 yet, but it had the most hilariously slow chase scene since Mitch.
God, it was awful. Yeah.
I was just like, wow. Like, and it was weird. I was fascinated by it because I was totally captivated by how they did it. Like, I understand why it looked the way that it did, because they were like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to put them on motorcycles. We're going to put this guy in a car. And then the only thing we're going to special effects out of this are the wheels. I'm like, okay, that's cool. But now they're not moving like speeders.
Yeah.
Now they're moving like mopeds. And that's not like, I like how Boba Fett showed up with the rocket paddock at the end. I'm surprised they didn't have him just like gently jog over there.
I felt like they might as well have been riding around in bumper cars. Like,
right? It was
that ridiculous.
It was quite silly. This whole episode felt a little unfinished in the effects department. Like, that shouldn't have flown. And there were also a bunch of scenes where the aspect ratio got really weird. Like, the visuals got really distorted on the ends. Like they were trying to squish things into frame. It was a couple of scenes I noticed while I was watching. I was like, this is kind of weird. But that said, I'm still really enjoying the show. And I don't know. I saw Bill Boyer's post about how it was worse than Attack of the Clones, and I'm like, all right, dude, slow your roll here. Right?
Wait, Attack of the Clones is the benchmark? I didn't hate that one nearly as much as what was it, Revenge of the Sith? Was that the third one? God, I hated that one.
I think Attack of the Clones is the worst.
Yeah, I find that. I mean, I don't like Revenge of the Sith at all. But there are things about it that I'll tolerate more than in Attack. I find Attack of the Clones more physically difficult to sit through than Revenge of the Sith. That's where I sit on that particular one.
Well, half of it is like an espionage spy thriller about these clones, which, again, I would argue we don't need any backstory on Boba Fett. And the other half of it is a love story with people that have zero on-screen chemistry. So it was...
Yeah, it fails everywhere.
Yeah,
even the CG looks like crap.
If those two halves are what make up the movie, then I would say that the collective whole movie is garbage.
There's the other thing that kind of I find amusing about the whole Boba Fett thing. Like, I completely agree with you, but I mean, I'm already over it because they've been doing that for ages. Like, they had young Boba Fett in freaking Clone Wars, like, for a bunch of episodes, like him, teenage Boba Fett trying to become a bounty hunter and stuff. Like, whatever. Okay, so Boba Fett's not somebody I particularly care about. It is what it is.
So to jump back what Paul said before, I think one of the things that I want to say I hate, because I'm always like, damn, why did they do that? But at the same time is probably why it's so great. A lot of Star Wars, they've done it at least 3 or 4 times that I can think of off the top of my head. They create a really cool villain, give you way less than you want, and then kill them off. And I think that creating that high demand and then cutting off the supply is why we idolize some of these villains. Like, Boba Fett really wasn't in those first movies very much, but they introduced this cool character, didn't give us nearly as much as we wanted, and then took him away. They did the same thing with Darth Maul. Like, that was a great character. That was one of the best parts of that movie. He was a cool character. They gave you very little of him and then killed him at the end. Spoiler alert, in case you missed that 22 years ago. And then, what was it? Rogue One. There was I think it was like a bounty hunter or like some sort of zealot that was working for the main guy in the desert who was out to collect them. And I thought he was so cool, and I was sure he was going to be a character that was going to like travel on. He had a weird face, and he was like a believer, you know. So it was this zealoty guy. And then they killed him.
Guerrera.
I don't remember. God, I saw it like twice. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great movie. But
Saw Gerrera was in like he was in a bunch of the Clone Wars. Like, he was a character that had been existing in a bunch of other Star Wars stuff before that.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. I only know the actual movies. Like, even the crappy movies, like the Ewok movies and the Christmas special. But I didn't watch any of you're talking about the animated Clone Wars series.
Yeah, that Clone Wars series had a bunch of Saw Gerrera in it, and he was also a character in the latest video game, for crying out loud. But that was like, oh my god, Saw Gerrera in live action. Oh, this is how he dies. Okay,
and then he was dead. Like,
it was like a totally different perspective. And like to get back to Darth Maul, like, and that's why I was so hopeful about this Boba Fett movie, because I agree. They showed up Darth Maul. He's this really awesome character, and then they replace him with a bad pun on Count Dracula's name because he's played by Christopher Lee with Count Dooku. Come on. But yeah, Darth Maul was amazing, and then the guy who's effectively a showrunner of this and all current Star Wars TV stuff, Dave Filoni, did a continuing story for Darth Maul that he survived. And it was really freaking good. In fact, Darth Maul had a lot of crazy good story after episode 1. Like, really, really good stuff. And was eventually killed, spoiler alert, by Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Again. Yeah. And I would say if it was cool enough to be in a cartoon, like I kind of just wish they made it in the movie. Like I kind of wish he could have been cool in the movie series. Like make him the villain of that first, the Lucas prequel trilogy.
I couldn't agree more. I wish they would have gotten that right back then. But that's kind of like what Dave Filoni's been doing, is taking the things that like didn't really work about the Star Wars movies and fleshing them out. So when they said he was going to do a Boba Fett show, I was like, I don't really want a Boba Fett show because I don't really like Boba Fett because of most of the stuff that's happened with young Boba Fett, because I don't really care. But you know what? I liked him when he showed up in Mandalorian. I trust Dave Filoni, and I think it's given me a lot of cool stuff. Fett himself isn't knocking my socks off, but I'll watch Fennec Shand all day long. She's great. And now he's got a pet Rancor that he wants to learn how to ride. And Danny Trejo's its trainer. Like, I'm into that. Give me Boba Fett riding a Rancor into battle.
Yeah, I'm gonna stick with it, but I don't know. I'm my interest is waning.
And when Black, I've been pronouncing his name wrong because I read him in the comics. I always called him Cranston, but it's Cranaston or Caranston or whatever. The big Wookiee that showed up.
Oh,
like, again, he's a character I know from the comics. I was like, oh shit, he's got history with Boba Fett, and that's why he let him go. I remember I just read that Bill or whatever was really upset that Boba Fett let him go. It was like, those dudes have a history. They know each other. They've worked together before. Like, Boba Fett wouldn't see the point in killing him because he knows he could be useful later. But again, it's kind of relying on knowing the rest of Star Wars lore, which is inherently a problem when you got something like this. It's crossing mediums. Like, okay, that's cool, but for anybody who didn't watch Clone Wars, who cared that Ahsoka showed up in Mandalorian last season, right? Like, because you don't know if this is the only thing that you're watching. I think the tangled web of Star Wars is a little bit more difficult than stuff like the MCU to make it matter to people who aren't more hardcore nerds. But
that's probably the beauty of the MCU, is that like there's lots of stuff in there that the hardcore nerds pick up on, right? And like I just rewatched the Eternals. We there's all kinds of stuff in there suggesting what's coming next, and it's exciting. But MCU does a great job of kind of backfilling as needed to let, even though you might not catch it right when the uber nerds catch it, or even the moderate level nerds such as myself, who are maybe a step slower, but like the masses, they get the backfill that's needed, and they will eventually be able to appreciate it. Especially like that the payoff for that's in the next movie. If they go back and rewatch the two movies, it all fits together so nicely. And maybe Star Wars would benefit. And I know it's a very popular franchise, but I think at this point MCU is probably blowing it out box office wise. I would think
so, yeah.
And maybe that might be the reason why. Maybe they're not doing a good enough job of, backfilling without. You can't take too much time doing, backfill, because then you're going to lose the nerds. They're like, we already know the basic story of Spider-Man. Come on, move forward. But you gotta strike that balance just right to widen your net.
Yeah, and it also, the MCU doesn't have the problem of being like the medium of the MCU is it's just all these movies, and movies are the things that everyone knows, where if you like Marvel movies, you can get into this story pretty easily. If you like Star Wars, but you don't like reading comics, then you're going to miss a bunch of stuff that's considered officially canon. If you like live action movies, but you don't want to watch a bunch of kids cartoons, well, then you're going to miss a bunch of backstory on these characters that show up in these adult shows. And it's I guess they have to really toe that line on what they can make interesting for people who aren't experienced with a bunch of that other of those other mediums, and still make it entertaining,
Right.
Which it's not a problem for me because I'm a Star Wars whore. So I read all the comics and I watch all the cartoons and I'm all caught up. But for anyone else, I guess I can see, especially people who have a vision of what Boba Fett's supposed to be in their mind, seeing him not just constantly kicking ass is not fun. Whereas I just think it's interesting that this he's not a leader. He's never been a leader. He's been a freaking bounty hunter his whole life. And now he's in charge of a bunch of stuff. But because of what he recently went through with the losing his armor and being stuck in the desert with the sand people, he understands that things have everything that he, just doing badass moves for the sake of doing badass moves have consequences. And I think that's a really interesting show to watch. But I think most people who are signing up for a Boba Fett show just want to see Boba Fett Boba Fetting, and that's not what you're getting.
Right.
I don't know what I thought I was signing up for, but yeah, I also don't understand what the show is, so there's that.
It does have a focus problem. Like the flashbacks feel so heavily removed from the modern stuff. It's jarring. It's not quite Witcher season 1 where everything's out of order. Good luck jarring, but it is it's got some issues. But I could literally just talk Star Wars all day every day. So we should probably move over to you guys discussing Gigli.
Yeah, I was about to say, who's got a focus problem is you.
Yes.
We just spent 20 minutes talking about Boba Fett, and we got 2 movies to talk about. 2 movies.
I'm very easily distracted by Star Wars.
All right. So on to Gigli.
Okay. Sean, it's Gigli, like it rhymes with really. But listen,
please tell me that's a line from the movie.
It is a line from the movie. Listen, I think we should do first impressions, but then, Kris, this is what I think we should do to keep us focused so we get to the next movie. I think you should reread that synopsis that you read, and then Sean and I should jump in with all the awful crap that you're not saying.
Okay, I'm into this.
But wait. As you were looking that up, Paul, we got to set the mood for our one fan who likes the moods. For a meal, I thought to myself, what snack pairs well with Gigli? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I don't have any Gigli cookies. Remember Giggles, the cookies from the 1980s? I don't have any of those because they would be very stale. But honestly, if I found it in an open box, I'd still give it a run. But I didn't have that. So then I thought, well, I don't know this movie, but what I do know is it's supposedly one of the worst movies on the planet by popular standards. So I looked in my kitchen. I said, what's the worst thing by popular standards that I could do right here? So I had like 2-day-old cold Domino's pizza. But wait, it wasn't even regular Domino's pizza because I get it with their Alfredo sauce to try to avoid the heartburn that I get anytime I eat Domino's pizza. So it's Alfredo sauce, 2-day-old cold Domino's pizza. I think it had ham and bacon on it, maybe. I don't know. Definitely some meat on there.
You're trying to avoid heartburn with this?
Well, the tomato sauce gets me. If I replace that with a white sauce, it's not as heartburning. I'm not going to not eat pork. Come on, let's be honest. And then I was like, well, what would be what do I put with that? I'm looking for a beverage, and I had a can of non-alcoholic BrewDog Punk AF beer, which again, this sounds like the worst meal ever, which is what I was trying to do. But in all fairness, these are things that I buy. Like I buy that beer. I try not to drink during the week. So I drink non-alcoholic beer, and I buy Domino's on a regular basis. So while I'm kind of talking crap on them, these are still normally things I would buy. But I was like, yeah, most people would say this is a terrible meal that I've put together here.
I mean, look, I'm not going to say that Elio's pizza is fine dining, but damn if I don't love it.
I keep buying. Yeah.
It sounds like a thoroughly vomiting-inducing meal, and I think that is apropos for the movie. I don't know if I could have eaten anything while I watched this movie, because I think I just would have hocked it up. I think this movie was so awful it would ruin my appetite for anything.
I want to get a T-shirt of it. Did you find your thing there, Kris?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm ready.
All right.
Look, here's my first impression of this movie. Never have I seen a movie where so little happens under the charade of so much happening. Right? Like there's supposedly big things going on in this movie. Like he's got to kidnap the guy that's the district attorney's brother. They have to hold on to him. J-Lo gets brought in because he might potentially screw it up, right? Like
There's
there's
being cat fights, suicide attempts, murders, fingers cut off. The guy from that TV show, The Neighbors, gets shot.
yeah, there should be a lot happening, and like really it's just a bunch of people sitting around in an apartment talking at each other or sitting around in a car talking at each other. Like they drive around town with that kid in the car. There's no like police looking for them. There's no, there's nobody that comes to try to there's no close calls. There's no nothing. Like there's no stakes in this movie. Like was this supposed to be a comedy or an action movie? Like I don't even know what this was.
No stakes. In the last scene, Ben Affleck basically creates stakes that didn't exist up until that moment by giving the cops his location and also pissing off the main bad guy. And then now that he's got everybody coming down on him, he's like, take my car and go. I'm just going to walk it off on the beach here where I don't blend in. That's my plan. You're right. There was no stakes the whole movie until the end where he artificially created them. There was no reason for any of that. And then he strands himself where he's created it for no apparent reason.
Yeah, I don't even think anybody was really looking for him. Like,
not until then. Not until he said, come look for me.
It was so weird.
Did you get the impression that maybe the DA was sick of taking care of his brother and was kind of hoping they were just going to off him?
Or that like he was supposed to connect with the brother and befriend him and take care of him, in which like there was no lead up to that. Like he acted like an asshole to that kid the whole movie, like reading him the back of a soda bottle instead of finding a goddamn book. Like what the hell, man? All right, Kris, start with this. We got to keep us focused. Start with the synopsis and we're going to jump in.
Okay, first paragraph. Larry Gigli is a low-ranking Los Angeles mobster who is not nearly as tough as he likes to act. Louis or Louis?
So he's a Los Angeles mobster, which like I don't know what that is, right? Like he's walking around like a New Jersey Guido, like like with his leather jacket and his slick back hair, being like, hey, paisan. Yeah, like it's like friggin' on the West Coast with like palm trees and beaches and stuff. Like,
and he's dressed like he's in Boston the whole time. Everybody else is in like bathing suits, and it's like, what are you doing?
He was like a goddamn fish on a bicycle. He looks he looks so ridiculous in this space, and like it would have been funny if if this was a mob movie, like if this was a movie about mobsters and like everybody was like out of The Sopranos, like Ben Affleck would have been the greatest character actor in that movie. But like the fact that he was the star of the movie, he was the most non-compelling, like garbage protagonist that we ever could have had. But anyway, go on.
Louis, is it Louis or Louis?
Doesn't matter.
God, it doesn't matter.
Louis, a higher-ranking member of Gigli's organization, commands him to kidnap the mentally challenged younger brother of a powerful federal prosecutor to use as a bargaining chip to save New York-based mob boss Starkman from prison.
So,
you take this, Sean. Go ahead.
So yeah, that's the gist of the plan. The plan. First of all, the guy is worried that he can't handle it. So that's where the next sentence is coming from. But really, that was the extent of the plan. There wasn't really a terrorist threat letter or something. Like after he realizes his plan doesn't work because there was only like the first half of a plan, do they take further action with the cutting off of the thumb thing? But at first he's just like, go kidnap this kid, and it's the most boring kidnapping ever. Ben Affleck walks in. He could easily just walk out with the kid. Instead, he gets all flustered and starts to fight with the kid for some reason. But they just let him in, whoever they are. I don't think anyone was running that place. And they let him walk out with the kid. No one seemed to care. He didn't break into a place. He didn't like club the kid and drag him away. It was just like, hey, you want to go for a walk? Okay, let's go for a walk. And they walk and they
Yeah.
get in the car and they drive away.
I would say that whatever challenges this young man had was not covered in this movie, right? Like, it's set up that he had some sort of, disability. It didn't really seem like it was like a cognitive disability. Like, he seemed like he was smart, like it seemed like he was maybe somewhere on the spectrum, but like this was not in any way covered. And it was like insulting in that, like, I cringed a lot of times in that the gangsters would just drop the R word when they refer to him, including our protagonist Gigli. And I think we were supposed to get that he was warming up to the kid, but he was like such a douche clown to the kid. Yeah, he walks into that place, whatever that place is, that institution, not totally explained, doesn't have to find a way to get him out of the building, doesn't have to, he just strolls out the front door, like, no security in this place. They're just letting these people go, whatever this place was, right? And then he's such a dick to this kid in the car, right? The kid keeps talking about the Baywatch, that he wants to go to where the Baywatch is, whatever that is, right? That they, like, where they filmed the Baywatch, or the real place that Baywatch is, right? So Gigli, the friggin', jerk that he is, right? Like, he opens his glove box, this patronizing dick, right? And he takes out a flashlight and he starts talking into it like it's a walkie-talkie, right? And he's like, "Oh, sorry, bud, the Baywatch is closed today. They just, they told me the Baywatch is closed." Then the a-hole gets a call on his cell phone and answers his cell phone right in front of the kid. He couldn't have used his cell phone to call the Baywatch. He had to be a patronizing dick and talk on a flashlight. Like, ugh. Anyway, go on, Kris.
Gigli successfully convinces the young man, Brian, to go off with him by promising to take him to the Baywatch. Apparently, a reference to the television show of that name, which seems to be Brian's singular obsession. Louis does not trust Gigli to get the job done right, so he hires a woman calling herself Ricky to take charge.
Go ahead, Sean.
Oh, God. So, so Ricky, I guess, is testing him out when she shows up and doesn't say who she is, and he lets her in, which, okay, that's stupid. But okay, they make it clear that he wants to have sex or whatever, fine. And then she kind of says who she is, and he just keeps going along with it. Like, every stage of his opening interaction with this woman was a poor strategical decision. Strategical? I'm sticking with it. Strategical decision. And yet somehow she's mad at him at first, but then, like, I don't. She's supposed to be the smart one, but everything he's doing seems worse than the thing he did before, but then she's going along with it.
I would argue, who is she? Like, what is her job, right? Like, what are any of these people's jobs? Like, he's like a mobster, but, like, he's been hired to do this job of kidnapping this kid. Like, does he do low-level, like, crimes like that? Or is he, like, a hitman? She says that she's a contractor. There's nothing about her that seemed like a hitman. So, like, did she just do quote-unquote jobs? Like, would one of those jobs be, like, cleaning your fridge if you called her? Like, what did she do?
Yeah, she balked at every kind of physical violence in the movie, and he did too. I mean, I guess he was kind of threatening to that guy in the opening scene that he put in the dryer, and he got some money out of him. But yeah, I don't know. They're not good at their jobs. That's for sure.
Never saw that guy again. Never saw that guy that he put in the dryer. That seemed like it was going to be a big plot point. Not a plot point at all.
Oh, that he helped him out and it was going to turn around and help him in the end. Yeah, that would have at least given you some sort of callback thematic.
Also, only the only time there was narration. Like, he's like, I'm Gigli. This is a story about and like that didn't come back. Him narrating the story.
And then he was a dick to everybody the whole movie. Why didn't he kill that guy if he's such a dick? I didn't even think of that till just now. Like, he wasn't nice to anybody, not even her. Like, he falls in love with her, and you see that because she's like toying with him with, like, I don't know, sexual positions in the one point.
Oh, let's let Kris get to that part. Go ahead, Kris.
All right.
Gigli is attracted to Ricky, but he resents both Louis' lack of faith in him and having to take orders from a woman. He's also frustrated by Brian's insistence on going to the Baywatch, and by the fact that Ricky is a lesbian.
Yes.
A suspicious detective comes to the department to question Gigli in reference to Brian's disappearance. He is further annoyed when his mother immediately bonds with Ricky, and they team up to needle him.
All right, hang on. There it is. That she's a lesbian. So this movie takes the stance that a lesbian is only a lesbian because they haven't met a nice, good-looking paisan from New Jersey yet, right? Like that's what this movie sets up, right?
That's
She's
what
a
his
lesbian.
mom says. His mom says that. Like, it's not even a hidden plot line. That's what his mom says, and then they're like, "Yep, that's how it is."
Oh, yeah.
Good
Wait.
God.
What did you just say in that part about the detective? The detective showed up.
My God.
The detective was Christopher Walken in one of the only good performances in this movie, right? So like first of all, he comes in and you think that he's going to be an important character, right? Like, he's this detective that's showing up to tell Gigli that, like, he might be in trouble because people are looking for this district attorney's brother, right? We don't see Christopher Walken again. We don't see him again after this scene, right? And, he has this, like, really weird monologue about, like, hey, we're going to eat pie from Marie Callender, and I'll stick it on your head and lick it off your face. This is, like, super weird monologue that he had, right? But, like, the stakes should be high because he's a detective who's there to look for the kid that Gigli kidnapped. The kid's in the next room, and J-Lo is on the couch just reading a goddamn book, right? Like, she's supposed to be the fixer, and she seems unfazed by the fact that there's a detective in the apartment looking for the kid who's in the next room, who could burst in at any time and talk about the Baywatch because he is unpredictable.
You don't see her reaching for a gun or anything like that. And one, she might have just been bored like the rest of us. Two, I think Christopher Walken probably saw what was happening and quit the movie on the spot, but they already got that one scene done, because that scene served no purpose. Because when he left, she was like, "We got to get out of here." And Ben Affleck's like, "No, nobody's going to make me leave my house." And then they continue to go back to his house like it's not a big deal. Like, they eventually get in a car, drive around a bit, but like, Christopher Walken doesn't come back into the movie. So what did him showing up do? What plot point did that further other than letting us know that nothing? It didn't do anything. Like, okay, Ben Affleck is known to be connected to the criminal underworld. We kind of got that impression earlier because he had a bad reputation or whatever. So, okay, the local cops know he's got a bad reputation. But
no one follows them when they're in that car. There's no chases, no police chases. I mean, the only disguise that Brian, the younger brother of the DA, has on is a hoodie and glasses. He's not very well disguised.
The lesbian plotline that we just went over, this I'm just jumping around here because so many other bad things. Remember how Chasing Amy at least got some things right? Whatever they got right there, Ben Affleck was like, what if we did it the opposite way and we'll just get all that wrong? And then we'll sucker Christopher Walken and Al Pacino into being in the movie, who also quit after one scene. You'll see there's a theme forming there, a pattern. They suckered him in for like one afternoon. They were like, "Give me a half hour, one take, and then you can go home." And they were like, "One take because we owe you a favor or something." And then that was it. They were out. You never saw them again.
I think those two were in a different movie. I think those two. I think they gave him that one scene. I don't think they gave him the script. I think those guys thought this was a comedy.
I think you're probably right. Either that or they just didn't care. Like, they were probably like, "Look, we're making this movie. We need some names. Can you just come for an afternoon?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got another shot down the street. So why not?
Remember in True Romance when all these famous people showed up and did one scene and it was like one of the greatest scenes ever? Like Christopher Walken was in one scene, it was amazing. Dennis Hopper was in like 2 scenes and they were both great. Samuel L. Jackson, Gary Oldman, everybody had like these, and then they would get killed for the most part, and you wouldn't see them again. They would just disappear out of the movie, but you didn't care because the scene was so good. This movie didn't do that. This movie did the opposite.
Isn't Christopher Walken in that scene where they call him an eggplant and he goes, "You
You're
are
a
a cantaloupe"?
God, we watched that scene over like on repeat at your place in Maine, I think it was.
No, it was when I lived in Maryland.
Maryland, that was it. Goodness gracious, that was a weird day.
Cantaloupe.
I think they were trying to recreate that. They were like, what if Christopher Walken just comes in and starts talking about fruit? Well, we can't do fruit again. How about pie? He'll just come in and it'll be this epic scene where he talks about putting a pie on his face.
All right. We're halfway through.
Okay.
Events take a darker turn when Gigli and Ricky receive orders to cut off Brian's thumb, something neither wants to do. Worse, her ex-girlfriend, Robin, shows up at the apartment, accusing Ricky of changing sexual orientation. Robin attempts suicide by slitting her wrists and is rushed to the hospital where she survives. There, Gigli sneaks into the morgue and cuts off a corpse's thumb, which he sends to the prosecutor as Brian's. Gigli and Ricky go back to his apartment where he confesses his love, and they sleep together.
So there's supposed to be these like ruthless criminals. They don't want to cut off Brian's thumb. It doesn't make a lot of sense. They haven't really connected with him. They've treated him like an a-hole the whole movie. And then it just seems like they're bad at their jobs. And I would also say Robin, this ex-girlfriend of J-Lo's, or Ricky's or whatever her name is, right? Like, weirdest scene ever, right? Because she suspects that Ricky is sleeping with Gigli, and her way of trying to like remedy this or get her back is saying, let's all just sleep together. Like, she's like, I'll fuck all of you. Like, super weird.
And then it was the most boring suicide scene ever. Not that suicide's fun. That's not what I'm saying. But like, she just did it all of a sudden. You didn't really see her do it. And she turned around and her wrists were slit. And like, nobody in the room gave a shit. Like, Ben Affleck seemed kind of annoyed. Like, now I got to deal with like, now, okay, look, you're in my house and you're bleeding. Because again, they're at his house at this point, if I'm not mistaken, because they don't care that Christopher Walken is hot on their trail because he's already quit the movie, so they know he's not coming back. So then she slits her wrist and like, I don't know, there's no screaming, there's no panic, there's no, like, when you're filming a scene where someone tries to kill themselves, it should be somewhat adrenaline pumped, right? She just calmly slits both her wrists. They watch her do it. She holds up her wrists. And then it's like, all right, let's cut to the hospital scene where Ricky and the ex-girlfriend who just tried to kill herself over whatever fight they're having are smiling at each other. And like, everything's cool now. Somehow in the 10-minute drive to the hospital, everybody's just on the same page and everybody's happy again. That was really important 10 minutes that we didn't get to see.
The suicide scene was almost like she ripped off a Band-Aid and then went, look, gross, see? Like, that's kind of what it looked like.
Gah.
And then that's part of what makes him fall in love with her, is he sees her compassion towards this person. But one, he's a dick who had no compassion towards the person, so why would he care about that? And two, why are the two of them just smiling and like, they're like, I don't remember if they're hugging or she's like patting her on the head, like there's, favorable emotions being passed back and forth. If there was some sort of cathartic moment, right? Because I don't know if this was a comedy or a drama. I don't know what they were going for here. I guess a romantic comedy, maybe.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. So if you're gonna have some sort of emotional development, maybe show us. Maybe don't just cut that scene and skip to the part where everybody's cool again.
They are summoned to meet with the mob boss. Starkman reveals that he did not approve of the plan to kidnap a federal prosecutor's brother or cut off Brian's thumb. He nevertheless rages at them because it didn't match Brian's fingerprint, and therefore not only failed to increase pressure on the prosecutor, but even undermined their credibility.
Second best scene in the movie after Christopher Walken, and it was literally only because Pacino was in a different movie. Like he probably just got that scene and he was like, I'm gonna shoot you, feed your brains to the fish. It was amazing.
You know, their performances were. I don't hate Ben Affleck as an actor. I like some things he's in, but this was just this. This was bad acting from him. I think. Like I don't know. Not that good acting was going to save it. You know, I don't know. Al Pacino seems fun. He killed the guy from Neighbors, which made me sad because I like that guy.
Ben Affleck would have been great in the movie if every single character was like, "Hey, yo, Johnny!" Like if it was a movie about mobsters, you know, if he was like a low level thug in Goodfellas, he would have been a great. But he was the lead in this movie. He was garbage.
Starkman then kills Louis in retaliation for the kidnapping and associated scrutiny by law enforcement. He is about to kill Ricky and Gigli, but she talks him out of it. She points out that only they know where Brian is, and only they can silence and prevent him from revealing Starkman's organization's involvement in the kidnapping.
The kid who thought a flashlight was a cell phone, they're worried that he is going to talk to the cops and piece this plot together, despite not knowing anybody's names, any of their connections to anything, and again, believing that a flashlight is a cell phone.
I have nothing to further dissect about the movie after that scene.
All right, well, there's only a couple sentences left.
Are you kidding me?
All right. Take it away, Chris.
They leave Starkman's, decide to leave the mob, and discuss taking Brian back to where they found him. On the way, they discover a Baywatch-like music video filming on the beach. Brian begs to be let off there, and they finally consent. Gigli convinces Ricky to take his car to escape to parts unknown, but at the last minute, she returns to pick him up, and they leave town together. The end.
Yeah,
this sounds great.
I didn't know if anybody knew where he lived in the first place. I didn't know if anybody was really looking for him. You know,
you didn't see the DA brother once in the whole movie, and I honestly believe that the DA brother was a dick. I was hoping his brother was going to get killed because he was tired of taking care of him. Right? That's the best I can piece together. Because whether he was missing or they sent a thumb or whatever, nobody took any action. At the end, Ben Affleck calls the cops and says, "I have the kidnapped DA brother kid guy here with me at the beach," and like gives them the address. And then nobody shows up. I mean, nothing happens.
I don't understand why he gave J-Lo the car. And if I were J-Lo, I would have started that car and sped it up to 90 and gotten as far away from that goddamn beach and him as I could have.
In that movie.
You missed out, Chris. You missed out.
Well, the movie didn't go anywhere. I could still watch it.
I think you just got a better experience listening to Sean and I talk about it.
I have no doubt in my mind that is the case. I cannot imagine myself watching this movie.
I'm going to get a Gigli t-shirt. That's the only way to commemorate that moment in my life.
Well, you know what? I think it's time for us to talk about what we're here to talk about.
I don't even remember.
Thank you for the Gigling. Thanks for jiggling all over the podcast.
I was just taking a sip of water when you said that, and there was almost water all over the wall.
All right, so the movie that we're actually here to talk about, besides Boba Fett and Gigli, the topic of today's podcast is a wonderful little movie called The History of Future Folk. It was released on May 31st, 2013, and was distributed by Film Buff and Variance Films. It was directed by John Mitchell and Jeremy Kip Walker. John Mitchell's previous credits include several short films, such as Superpowers and Goodnight Bill, while Jeremy Kip Walker has far more producer credits, including The Big Sick and Half Nelson. The movie stars Niels Fred Johnson, is what I'm going to call him. It's Niels Del, but I'm just going to say Fred. Jay Clates, Julianne Emery, and April Hernandez Castillo. It tells the story of an alien who came to Earth to destroy all life in order to save his world, but decides not to when he discovers music, which is apparently completely unique to Earth. I watched this on Netflix with Karen. I had a glass of chocolate milk and something called a cowboy cookie with it, which is basically an oatmeal raisin cookie that also has chocolate chips in it, and it was delicious.
Oh. Well, I also watched it on Netflix because that's where the movie is. I had 2 Rice Krispie treats, which I grabbed and went. Sorry.
Did you ever like take them and put something inside to make a Rice Krispie treat sandwich?
No, but that
Oh my
sounds like
god!
a really
I want to
smart
make a
idea.
Rice Krispie treat s'more.
Oh, I was thinking ham and cheese, but I like your idea better.
Yeah, that's a good plan. I'll put that on the list. No, so Nate, one of his days at school, he came home with this big box of snacks. I think basically what happened was they had a party in school, like they had a holiday party, and I think like, because of COVID, they weren't allowed to just like snack in the classroom, so it was like everybody bring a snack, and then like you distribute one of yours to everybody else. And so it was like everybody got one snack from somebody in the class, like almost like a Valentine's exchange, but with snacks, right? So he comes home with this big friggin' box of snacks and he just puts it on the counter and he's like, this is going to be my grab and go box. Like, if you want a snack, you can just grab it and go. And we were like, okay, cool. Does it have to be in the middle of the kitchen counter? And he was like, yeah, like this is where it is. Cause if you need it, you just grab it and go. So like after that, like we would walk by this box and I'd be like, I'm just going to grab this and go. And like, that's like been our joke between my wife and I. So I went up to the box, I grabbed 2 Rice Krispie treats, and then I went downstairs and enjoyed the movie.
Nice.
I watched it on the Netflix with Jackals, and I thought to myself, future folk. All right, we got future and we got folk. What do I drink with that? Folk makes me think of bourbon, right? I don't know, folk music bourbon. I don't know. That's what I went with. And then Jacqueline, I was like, this works out nice. Jacqueline got me this thing I had to make, like, she got me this thing for Christmas. You pour some like whiskey or bourbon or whatever you choose into it, but then you got to leave it for a couple days. So it's bourbon for the future. So it's future folk. That's what I drank, and then I didn't pair it with anything that would pair with it. I had like Cheetos because that's what was there. So Cheetos, and
Classy.
bourbon. Yeah,
Super classy.
super classy.
Well, I guess I'll go first. Actually, no, Paul, this was your pick. You go first. Tell us about what did you think of this? You hadn't seen it before, right?
No, I had seen it before. So
okay, all right.
Yeah, so I saw this movie a couple years ago. I don't think it was when it first came out. Like it came out in 2012. I don't think I saw it then, but it was, maybe it was a year or two later, 2013 or 2014, somewhere in there. And I saw it and I liked it. I remember liking it. I remember being like, that was a fun, sweet little movie. Like I just, I remember it being one of those things where I said, I'd like to revisit this at some time. And then I sort of forgot about it. Like I forgot what the movie was called. It was sort of like seeing it again for the first time. I had forgotten a lot of it. Like I sort of remembered that it was like he had come to the planet to destroy it, and that he changed his mind. I also kind of remembered the thing, where he had the wife and the little girl, and I remembered some parts of it, but the only thing I could remember about the movie, when I was trying to find it again, was that there was a character named Kevin. I didn't remember that he was called the Mighty Kevin. I think I was maybe confusing the titles of the two characters, because like when I was trying to find the movie again, I would search like General Kevin or Commander Kevin or something like that, and like Wikipedia would be like, do you mean Commander Kevin of the USS, whatever, or Admiral Kevin of the Kevin Johnson of the US, some battleship or something, right? So like I could not find this movie because I didn't know any of the actors. I couldn't remember any of the names. But Kevin stuck in my mind because at the time when I saw the movie, I had a student named Kevin. And Kevin was always around. Like, he was always in the building. He was always there helping me with something. Kind of to a fault. Like, Kevin was great because, like, he was very knowledgeable and he would get stuff done. But, like, sometimes when you work with student all day, you just want to, like, sit in your office and, like, not be around them for a little bit. Like, sometimes it's, like, when you got a minute, you just want to, like, be in your office and, like, do some work. And like Kevin would like saunter in and like sit down and put his feet up on my desk and like pull out a hoagie and start eating it. And I'd be like, dude, like I get like 10 minutes a day where I don't have to be around you people. Like, could you not be here? You know? So I already had this joke about Kevin because, all right, so sometimes birds get into my building. I'm sorry, this is a little bit of a weird sidetrack. So sometimes birds get in my building, right? And like, I don't know how they get in. I don't think it's just that somebody leaves the doors open and birds fly in. Like, I think that they somehow land on the roof and have found some little thing to walk through where they get in the building, and then they can't get out. Like, they don't know where to find that thing again. So, like, when they're in the building, they just fly around unhappily until they die. So me and the only other person that works in my building, the woman that runs the art studio, we started naming the birds Kevin. And this pissed off student Kevin, who was always around. And to make it worse, we'd be like, hey, Kevin number 2, can you come help get Kevin out of the building? Like, open the doors and we'll put out birdseed, right? And he was like, I was here first. And we were like, and then like, even when that bird died, we'd be like, listen, Kevin number 3, we need you to help us get Kevin 2 out of the building. So we had this whole running joke with Kevin. And I didn't know that the character was called The Amazing Kevin. But I found the movie again, like kind of magically before we got to the letter H. And that's when I was like, this is fate. I have to suggest this movie.
It's all child labor and mental abuse with you, I swear.
It is.
Well, I, for one, am thrilled that you found it because I absolutely loved this.
I thought that you would love it.
It's so up my alley.
I knew you would love the movie, and I thought Sean would probably be tickled by the fact that Dee Snider was the bartender.
That cracked me up right away. I said it to Jacqueline right away. I was like, is that Dee Snider? And here's a question. I didn't do any research because that's not what I normally do for this. It felt to me at times, and maybe it was supposed to feel this way, or I don't know. It felt to me at times like maybe this started out as like a stage show. Like the two of them were in these costumes doing like a funny, like in New York bars. And then they were like, what if we expanded on this? What if we expanded on this? Like, you know how people do like gimmicky shtick music performances? Not that the music was bad, but like, there's
like what the audience thought they were doing in the bar.
Right, exactly. It felt like maybe it started out that way and really escalated, and then they were like, you know what, let's write a whole movie around this and like really blow it up, and took it to the next step,
So Kris might have the answer to this. Because Kris actually does research on these movies. But I'll tell you what I think that I found out. So I will tell you that I have been listening to the album on my journey to work for the last couple days, right? So sorry, I'm looking for something on my phone. So I watched it Sunday night, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and today I've been listening to the albums in the car. So I found it on Apple Music, right? And it looks like they have 2 albums. One's just called like Future Folk Volume 1, and it has a couple songs from the movie in it. It has Space Worms, and it has the song where he's that first song that he sings in the bar where he's singing about Hondo, like the lava pits and the fuzzy moss and all that stuff, where he's just singing about the planet. And it has that love song that he sings to her about stars in the Black Typhoon. So it's got those on it. I think that the album existed first, and that it was a stage show, and that they made an album with this concept. And then I think that, they had a little bit of following, and they took songs that were from the album that would work in the movie. Because there's a lot of other stuff that's on the album that like would have had no place in the movie. and it seems like they pick the right things to actually like showcase the story and make a cohesive movie. So there's so yeah, I've been listening to that, and there's other really funny stuff on it. There's a song called Pirate Krong that's about a space pirate from Galvatron, and it sounds a little bit like Johnny Cash, Boy Named Sue. You know, it sounds a lot of bit like he had 5 arms and a hole in his head, and he sailed around the moon. It's really like folky and funny. There's another song called Chromosome Z where they like I guess the point of the song is like we're all the same on the inside, right? Like you, me, whoever, we're all the same on the inside. It's like, it's a good sentiment for a song, but their whole thing is Hondonians and Earthlings are the same, except Hondonians have an extra chromosome called chromosome Z, and they're like, they say like, it's not as or there's other physiological things they talk about. Like they're like, we're more alike than we seem, but we got a glornix and you got a spleen, or we have you have 1 liver and we have 14 or something like that. So there's that stuff on the album, and then I've listened to another one that's called Live from Earth that I think came after the movie because somebody requests that the Mighty Kevin sing the Spanish serenade, and then he plays it at the end of the concert. So I think basically they made it, they had the concept, they did a stage show, they made an album, and then they're like, oh, we could turn this into a movie. And then they did it again for another couple of years and made a live album. And then I can find no record of them after that.
You are exactly right. Future Folk, according to Wikipedia, Future Folk is a New York City-based folk music comedy duo founded as a live act in 2004. The duo includes General Trias and the Mighty Kevin. They did that for a little while, and then they turned it into a feature-length movie, History of Future Folk. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how it went.
That about halfway through, I kind of started getting that feeling. Not that it's a bad thing. I don't think it like. I'm not saying that it was, oh, this is just this crap. No. I just kind of, there was a couple signposts that indicated that. All in all, I liked the movie. But yeah, it definitely had that feel to it.
I loved the concept of this movie, but on a more superfluous level, I used to be a New York City musician, and in my band Chocolat, we played several bars in New York, and so when they walked outside and I saw the sign for the trash bar, I was like, oh shit, that was the trash bar. And Karen was like, I thought that bathroom looked familiar because we played trash bar. So like I recognized that location. I thought that was pretty cool. That was great. Really, the scene where I'm a big fan of the banjo. I think it's a wonderful instrument, and the fact that was what the General Trias gravitated towards, and good lord, that guy's good at playing the banjo. That scene where he basically introduced Kevin to music I thought that was amazing. I just thought it was, first off, it was just a stunning collection of the most important music ever, from TV themes to video game music to classical music to just everything mashed together, which I thought was just incredible. But then like Kevin's reaction to it, like, how does a grown being that is effectively similar to a human being react to music for the first time? And not just reacting to music for the first time, but this crazy info dump of all this different kind of music, and watching his like terrified but exciting and then amused reactions to all this music, experiencing those emotions for the first time, I thought was captured so brilliantly. Of like, when he starts playing this, I don't remember what the song is called, but the super dramatic dun 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 dun, and he starts getting like really scared and screaming, and then he stands up and just sings and runs away.
O Fortuna is it called?
Maybe. not positive.
Because I would like when I would make a tuna sandwich, I would be like, "Oh, to tuna." Like I think it's called "Oh for tuna."
That would make sense. Well, yeah.
Oh,
I
so
just no, go ahead.
sorry, I wanted to while you were on the subject of that scene. I love that scene because it's so well acted by Kevin, you know, whatever the actor's name is, Jay Klatz or whatever, the mighty Kevin. Because in the beginning, he thinks those things are all torture devices. Like,
what are you gonna do? What is that thing? What are you gonna do?
Like, I like it, like just the incredible acting in that scene. It was realistic, yet also like funny shtick. It was so well done that he thinks that he's going to be tortured, and then he discovers music, and then like all of the feelings that go along with like discovering this new thing. Like it was such a range that he had to cover, and it was hilarious to watch.
It was hilarious and brilliant, and that's how I felt so much during watching this movie. Like, there was very much a sense of what the hell am I watching, or you know, what is this? Like when we first found the logo on Netflix, we were like, okay, so this is going to be an interesting ride. But I fell in love with it almost immediately. It was interesting because I went in pretty much blind. But you know, when you load up the Netflix thing, there's a little synopsis right there, and I just kind of naturally read it, even though I didn't really want to. I wanted to go in completely blind. So I knew that there was an alien that came to Earth or whatever, and it was my assumption while this thing was coming together that this was going to be a story of like this guy was a human and he made up this story about aliens, but that it turned out to be true, kind of a thing, like a weird cosmic coincidence that this alien guy shows up and he just happens to be exactly what this guy was telling a story about. But then he was General Trias and everything, and the story took a turn from there. So it consistently surprised me because I didn't really know what I was getting into, but it was even when as watching the movie, I kept being surprised by the turns that it took, and it was genuinely fascinating, like watching Kevin try to court this police officer, and just, you know, some people would be like totally willing to accept, like, all right, you're an alien, fair enough, and like the other dude's wife was just like, you cannot expect me. This is insane, and he was right to not want to immediately tell her, because people would think that is insane, because it is insane. But they grounded it so much in a sense of reality that it was so fascinating to watch. It was so well put together.
Yeah, I would agree that it's well put together. I have a couple notes on that I'm going to get to at some point, but I think Kris, I knew that you would love it because I think there's three things about it that I think I knew would appeal to you. Number one, like, I guess at its core, even though even though this is like a fun, heartful movie, I guess at its core, it's a low budget sci-fi movie, you know? And
yeah.
I think we have a special place in our hearts for low budget sci-fi that you can make fun of, and specifically things where humans have to be aliens, but the thing that makes them an alien is they wear a bright colored coverall. Like, I think that's like just, it speaks to us on that Mystery Science Theater level. I knew you were gonna love the you know, all the music stuff in it, and him playing, you know, the Super Mario theme on the banjo. And then, like, I think it also works on this level where it's not just about aliens and this plot to save Earth and Hondo from this comet, but that it's like a little bit like when does he choose music or the rest of his life? You know, like he was trying to balance a lot of different things. His job that he was sort of lying to his wife about, that was a means to an end to blow up the comet. His 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 job as General Treyas, where he's trying to contact Hondo, and he's got the storage shed with all the equipment in it, and he's trying to get in touch with them. And then like that he's a musician, like that this is so important to him that he's got to go to this club and play music. And like, I don't know, like there's something I think about it that must be like, that must feel like what it is to be the job of a musician, to like have that as a thing that you have to do in your life and that's that important to you. That you're, like, I don't know, like I know it's sort of working on two different levels, but I felt like that was part of it, and that was like something that people would key into.
I feel like you skipped over right there. He was also balancing it against like I mean his job here on Earth, sure, but his job was to come here and kill everyone and save the universe since he was save his planet since he was a little kid. His mom told me how to do this, and he was directly like he came here and he found music, and he was instantly balancing his lifelong mission against music. He was like, I can't let music go. So I think you're right, and given the fact that we now know that it is a stage show, I mean, this is this guy writing down like he probably gave up, probably lost some relationships and had a hard time with his whatever going on, trying to be a successful musician, because that's not an easy path.
It's most definitely is not.
Right. So I think he's directly correlating and putting some of that in there, like Paul said. Yeah, I think you were done with that, right? Those are the three things you wanted to tell Kris?
Yeah.
Well, the three things, for me, the three things are easy: intergalactic, inept, assassin. I mean, as soon as you say those three words, you've got it. You've got the makings of a movie. That scene where Kevin first shows up and is just bad at killing him cracked me up on a great level. And I feel like the movie did a great job of not becoming stupid. It decided it was going to be this kind of like heartfelt homage to music, and it had a point, and there was these messages or points it was trying to get across. It would do very funny, easy jokes. These are like when he first gets to Earth and he's walking through, I guess it's a Walmart or whatever they call it, and he just does a little dance in his robot costume or whatever. Like that scene's hysterical, and there's 100 examples of movies where it's a fish out of water, the alien lands on Earth, and he he doesn't know what a spoon is, and he sticks it in his ear, and like if that's all, it's easy to get lost in that. There's lots of movies that just do that, and they just do it over and over. And after you see a couple of them, it can start to lose its, I don't know, its luster or allure. This movie did a great job of like, here's a story of this movie, and we're going to do it. But every now and then, we're just in the background. You're going to see, this ridiculous thing happen, and I feel like it did a good job of not letting that become the focus, while still giving me the little giggle of him dancing in Walmart.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna take what you said there, and I'm gonna build off it. First of all, yeah, I don't know if it was Walmart or Costco or whatever, but I made that note too, right? That like that was so funny, because I think they did that scene while he was telling the bedtime story to his daughter, and he's explaining like General Treyas came here and he saw things unlike anything he'd seen in space, and it was like, what's the most bizarre thing we can juxtapose with this, alien in this red spacesuit, is to have him go into Costco. And then I thought, like, I thought it was a really well done. I thought it was a really well done piece of storytelling about how important the music was, because, he's in that Costco and he's about to release the virus, and he hears music, and like it's not even music, it's like muzak. It's like, the shitty elevator music that plays in a store. But like when you are a alien from a planet that's got no music, like even hearing that is like, what is this? I need to know more. Like I thought that was such a good choice for for sort of the starting point of this, like, love obsession with music. But then yeah, I don't know, Sean, you said something about sort of making the smarter jokes or doing the sort of smarter bits with the storytelling. And like, I gotta say, it was a thing that really impressed me about this movie is like, I don't know, I guess the economy of storytelling and like how they trusted the intelligence of the audience um with some of these storytelling things that, you know, you didn't need the story before the story, right? Like, because conceivably General Treis came here and he made all the same mistakes that Kevin did, right? Like, he's from the same planet and he, you know, probably made an ass of himself and got arrested and, you know, who knows what else, right? But like, you know, we saw start of some of his journey with that bedtime story, but then like some of the other things that they set up, like where he is working at that Air and Space Museum and he says to the security guard says this thing where he's like, I got this arrangement with this guy.
with his wife whenever his wife comes or something like that, right?
Yeah. So it's like just from that really well placed dialogue, we knew he was lying to his wife, and we knew that he resented the security guard because of this whole thing. And like, I thought that played out really well later in the movie when they had to fight all those security guards, and he like punched that guy, and he's like, "Yeah, but you know, I'm like, I thought you said not to hurt
gonna
anybody."
hurt anyone.
Yeah,
except for him,
right? You know, when him and Kevin were. Yeah, I think it was when they got out of the club for the first time and they're like walking down the street and there's the street musicians and everything. And he's like, don't make a spectacle of yourself, you know, or the way he talks to him about how Kevin acts around women or whatever. He's like, you can't do things like that. And it's like, you just know that there was all this story behind the story, but that we kind of got it all because of the sort of smart dialogue between General Treis and Kevin.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying about the economy of storytelling. It wasn't overly ambitious. It just decided to tell the story that it wanted to tell without overcomplicating it. And it's like, we're going to do this and we're going to do it as best we can. And I thought they really did an extraordinary job of it. They didn't get too over the top. Like, you still had some weird space alien in a funky looking suit that was the bounty hunter guy or whatever. I don't know, man. It was I just really enjoyed it. I just liked everything about it.
That the second assassin that came, I know it's easy to do. It's easy to do what I'm going to say when you don't have a budget, right? It's easy, and I'm sure that might have been part of it, because I'm assuming this was an extraordinarily low budget film. Not that it overly looked like it, but like, I'm sure that it was. That creature almost felt like an homage to the kind of sci-fi movies that you were talking about earlier, that, you know, the ones that are bad that you love to watch. You know, something about him just looked I don't know, ridiculous. It was a ridiculous, over the top looking bounty hunter from outer space, and I felt like they were, I don't know, they probably, you know, were watching Mystery Science Theater too, and they were like, you know, let's do it this way. Which, again, when you have no budget, it's easy to, you know, say, okay, let's that definitely falls in the realm of what we can do, so let's do it.
Well, I mean, yeah, no shade to the movie. The movie was great, but you could tell that it was low budget. You could tell sort of even in the way that it was made. You know, I mean, like, it was only a handful of locations. They were all locations that were attainable. You know, it sort of had all the recipes for a low budget movie. But like, again, like, this was another thing that was so great about this, right? Like, when you have a movie that doesn't have the backing of a studio and, you know, and all of the power and tricks that come with that, then like, you don't have as many tools in the toolbox to play with. And like, we as audiences are unfortunately used to that. Like, we watch a movie and we sort of expect a certain degree of like wow factor or whatever, or just or even just the support that it gets to strengthen the movie. that comes with a studio and a budget, right? But like, I think the thing that this movie did really well was like when when it started to, not that it ever dragged, but when it was paced really well, right? Because when it started when it started to when you started to be on something too long or something that was sort of expositional too long, they mixed it up with either these really great scenes or the musical bits, like in order to keep you engaged, right? Like a lot of times we were in the trash bar and we were listening to him, playing the music, and all the music was really fun and great. So that was sort of a nice journey. But then there was some really well like edited and performed scenes. We talked about the musical instrument torture scene, but the other thing that I loved was the rooftop fight that was cut with the tango. Like I thought that was like, I thought some of these scenes were so well done that then it was like, we pull out this trick to hook you in when we need to.
Yeah, and it was ridiculous, but it was I thought it was really fun. Like, all right, they're cutting between the fight scene and the tango, and that's cool. It's clever. It's a little cheesy, but I very much enjoyed it.
It makes me wonder. I don't know. Like it makes me. I guess it was yet another thing that was cool and well done about this movie is like, I feel like you understood the standpoint of the people of Hondo. Like again, it was like such a silly thing that it's, these men from outer space from this planet, and they're like, they look exactly the same as us. But, all these things that they set up in the movie kind of like clue you in to what the culture is on Hondo, like the thing about music and stuff was a big part of it, like them being wowed by it when they came here. But then, yeah, the way that they interact with women, like, like it didn't seem like aggressive or weird or gross. It just seemed like I don't know, like on Hondo, like everybody just must be a warrior who is like, who's like almost like a peacock, like preening, you know what I mean? Like I will attract you with this like heroic thing I do or whatever. Like it was this very like simplistic view of relationships and women. So I really bought into the thing about Kevin where he was like over the moon about this police officer, and then I thought that played really well with Treyas, who was like, yeah, you can't do that, buddy. Like, like, trust me, like, I know what it's like to be in a relationship where you're married and you have problems and you have a kid and you're still trying to play music and, and make it all work.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure how much more. I don't think I have anything in particular else I wanted to say about it other than, thanks for bringing this to my attention. I've rewatched that banjo scene a handful of times. I do also want to track down some of this music, and I thought this was a blast.
Yeah, this is no skin off my back to plug their music. I'm not making money off it, but yeah, I found it on Apple Music on iTunes. So it's 2 albums. One's a studio album and one's a live album, and they're really funny. I mean, like, I think it's kind of a when you're in the mood for it thing, because it's a lot of banjo plucking, but the like the gags in it are funny. Like they're funny songs.
Yeah, I'm frequently in the mood for banjo plucking. One of my favorite artists is banjo guy Ollie, so I like me some banjo.
I had never heard of this movie, quote unquote, heard of, but I do. As soon as we brought it up on Netflix, I was like, "Oh, this movie!" I hadn't seen it, but I had stopped on this movie and almost clicked on it like half a dozen times, and then I'd look closer at the picture and I'd be like, "Nah, that looks like it's probably gonna be stupid." But like it kept coming up on things like, "You might like this because of what you just watched," and like half a dozen times at least I was on it and thinking about it and almost clicked it and then just didn't. So thank you. Yeah, it was a fun movie, and I think I would have just kept passing it by. I don't think it's got good eye appeal.
Right. Yeah, I'm really glad that you guys liked it. I'm glad I found it again. Yeah, I'm also glad that we were able to actually like talk about a lot of things about it for the podcast because, like I said, I just remembered that I liked it and I didn't really remember much else about it. So like, I'm glad we didn't have this episode and be like, yeah, it was good, man. You know, like I'm glad it actually spawned a conversation.
It definitely struck a chord.
Oh.
And-
Wait, I'm sorry. I have one more thing I want to say about the movie because it seems like we're coming to a natural conclusion to it. But just about the low budgetness and the design of it and stuff too. I did really like that even though it had this like low budget silly sci-fi aesthetic, that like you still sort of bought into like this could be real and this could be like a spacesuit, you know, because I think it was really highlighted at the end when they had the big crowd in the bar that was their fans, and like they're all wearing like friggin' Home Depot buckets on their head painted red, you know, and like, you know, it really made their suit look like a spacesuit against the like really DIY stuff that their fans came up with.
I think that might have been one of the scenes that also made me think that maybe this was a stage show to begin with. I was like, that seems like something somebody did, and then somebody else was like, you know what, let's put this in a movie. It'll be great.
Yeah, it definitely struck. I didn't really get the vibe that it was a pre-existing act before, but I totally bought the. Yeah, this is how people in Brooklyn would react to this. Like, no doubt, this would totally go down.
Yeah, if a real alien actually came to Earth and discovered music, and then started playing it and telling silly stories, like they would immediately have a following of weirdos that just wanted to dig their space banjo music.
Yeah, without a doubt. Believable and wonderful. Just loved it.
Nice.
All right. Well, I think that brings us to everyone's favorite part of the show, where we try to decide what the heck we're going to watch next. So this was H. Next up is the letter I.
I need to go. I need to go first.
You need to go first?
I need to go first because
you need to go to the bathroom before we do
no,
this?
I need like so I think
Were
a
we
lot
not
of
gonna
times
do the blind voting thing, or
what's that?
Were we not going to do the blind voting thing?
Oh yeah, we're totally going to do the blind voting thing, but like I need to say mine first because a lot of times we'll have so listen, a lot of times, right? Like I've been giving you guys a couple different options before we even vote, right? Like I'm like, do you want this avenue or this avenue? Like there's so many movies that I just want to watch and talk about all the time. So like I have a hard time narrowing it down to one when we do this, right? So I give you a bunch of options. Admittedly, one of them always has Pauly Shore in it. But this time around, my brain will only let me do one thing. Like it will only suggest one movie. I can't get past the movie. So if it's anybody else's movie, I don't have a second option. So that's why I need to go first.
If you say my movie, I'm gonna be pissed. I'm just gonna be mad all the time from now on, moving forward.
I might. Like that's the way we've been, Sean.
All right.
Okay.
I mean, is it not in the army now?
No, it's not. I mean, yeah, I considered that because it's part of my Pauly Shoreverse idea.
Is the second letter D?
No.
Okay.
No,
okay.
The movie that I can't get past that I that I think there's nothing else I'd rather watch and talk about is again, movie starts with I, stars Dennis Quaid, Meg Ryan, and Martin Short.
It's inner space, baby.
Yeah. And they shrink down Dennis Quaid and inject him into Martin Short. So that seems like a recipe for a great movie, and my pick is going to be Inner Space.
It seems like a recipe for a great movie. You've never seen it?
Oh no, I've seen it.
I was going to say, yeah, it is a great movie. It doesn't seem like a recipe. It is a great recipe.
I mean, I haven't seen it in a long time, but yes, I've seen it plenty.
I've never seen it.
Oh, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You should be ashamed,
all right.
Chris. Ashamed.
Well, all right. Sean, what's your pick?
So I have a pick that if one of you has seen it, you might want to steer us towards it or away for it. So I would welcome commentary before we vote because I don't know that this is a movie I haven't seen. It's a movie that I should have seen, and I think that I foolishly trust the opinions of others too much because I just recently watched. I think we did talk about it on here. Ghostbusters, the female one. It was fine, whatever you call it. Ghostbusters 3, Ghostbusters 2.5. I don't know what you're calling it.
It's just called Ghostbusters. It was originally supposed to have a subtitle called Answer the Call, which would have been great because then it wouldn't have just be called Ghostbusters.
I can't stand that movies are doing that. Like they just keep like they're like, oh, now we're gonna put out whatever the Halloween or Nightmare on Elm Street. We're not gonna put a number on it. It's like, but there already is, or Scream. It's like there's already a movie with that name. You can't do that. You need a subtitle or a number. I prefer the number, but I'll go either way. But whatever. So that movie was fine, right? We discussed that, and I should have just watched it earlier. There was nothing wrong with that movie. I never watched, and if one of you watched it and it's bad but not bad enough to be good, you can flag me down. Independence Day 2. I never watched it.
I didn't see it. I mean I wanted to. I mean, I'm not saying I wanted to see it bad, but like I'm saying I saw the original Independence Day, and when the new one was advertised, I was like, oh, I should see that. But I
love the first one. The first one's a phenomenal movie in my opinion. Like I know it's
Oh
popcorn,
my God.
cheesy,
Love it.
just
Love
summer
Independence
blockbuster,
Day.
but it is the quintessential popcorn, cheesy summer blockbuster. Like that's it. That's as good as cheesy, great, big explosion summer blockbusters get. Right? I mean, where are you going from there? So the fact that I just never got around to watching the second one, I didn't hear anything good about it, but maybe it's great. Maybe I just let some gold slip through my fingers there.
I'm sure it can't have as good of a speech from Bill Pullman about attacking the aliens.
Right, and Will Smith isn't in it. I also didn't see it, and I also considered making this my pick because, like, I didn't see it because I was afraid to see it. I love Independence Day, and the trailers didn't look very good, and the reviews weren't very good, and I was like, I don't know. I mean, I want to see it because there's more Independence Day, and I always wanted to see what the world looked like after that movie. I've always wanted to see that, but I don't know, like, it seemed like it was, like, a serious movie, and not in a fun way, like the original Independence Day was. So,
like it didn't
that
have Randy
kind of-
Quaid. He didn't somehow survive.
yeah, I don't know. It just didn't seem like it had the same shtick. It seemed like it was going to be like a scary, serious action movie, and like Independence Day was just schlockily amazing. So I don't know. Yeah, I never saw it either. That's an interesting pick.
Yeah.
I was really on the fence on mine, and I came up with 3 picks. I guess the one I had to go with the one that I want to watch the most because I haven't seen it in a little while, and by a little while I mean like maybe a year or two. But it's also one of my favorite movies. I don't know how much there is to say about it, but then again, maybe there's a ton to say about it, and that would be Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh.
Because it's my favorite indie movie, and because my first thought was, I bet I should say Crystal Skull because I haven't seen it in a while, and I wonder how we'd feel about that now, removed from all of the, negativity that surrounded its initial release and whatnot. I would be curious. I think that would make it for a fun conversation. Of course, then there was also In the Heights, which was a fascinating thing that I watched on Netflix with Karen. But then Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade exists. And I'm like, well, are there any movies that I would want to watch more than this? And no, because it's one of my favorite movies. I just freaking love that movie. So that's my pick.
Last Crusade has just about my favorite joke that's sort of done in an edit in a movie. I won't talk about it in case we pick it. But probably one of the things I quote the most about that movie. I'm glad Last Crusade was your pick and not one of the other ones, because I would have to take issue. I mean, if it was Temple of Doom, I would just say I don't want to watch it. And if it was Raiders, I would argue that it
No,
doesn't
it's
start
not
with
Indiana
I.
Jones. That's
Yep.
Raiders.
Yep.
That does not start with I.
Yeah,
That was never in consideration.
When you saw it on the shelf, it was Raiders in big letters, and then
that was the
Of
original name of the
Lost Ark.
movie. They
Yep.
changed it later to make it fit with the other ones.
Yep.
So I take issue with your problems with number 2. I know we talked about this before. Every time I sit and watch that movie, I enjoy myself. There's so many things to love about it. And yes, there's a lot of problems, but there's so much greatness.
There's great stuff in it. I just can't swallow Willie Scott. She's one of the worst things that's ever been on film.
All right. Listen.
Podcast for another podcast.
Yeah, no, let's pause this because I can tell you this for free. If we pick this if we do Chris's pick, we're probably talking about the whole trilogy, right? Because we did that when we talked about Bill and Ted. So
right.
Probably. Yeah.
I think to Chris's point that there might not be enough to talk about. I think we would just talk about Indiana Jones. So
yeah, it's a solid point.
Oh, I thought
I just love that.
And
movie.
my D, I thought Paul was going to pick Idiocracy.
Oh man, that one crossed my mind too, but I didn't think I could do it anymore. I feel like the movie would just make me too sad.
Yeah, no, I couldn't get past Inner Space. I just think it's like the perfect thing to talk about.
All right, everybody ready?
1, 2, 3, clap. Autocorrect is a bitch.
So apparently we're watching a movie called Inner Spring. I don't know how that works.
It's all about mattresses. It's a great flick. You learn a lot.
It stars Coily. Coily,
no
the Magic
springs. Boring.
What's that?
Wow.
The Olympic mascot for Springfield?
Oh.
No, Coily was in a really bad Mystery Science Theater short where he teaches a guy what the guy gets so mad that he was like, I wish there was no springs. And then this magical spring sprite named Coily shows up and removes all the springs in the world. And then nothing works for the guy.
It's basically It's a Wonderful Life, except springs. It's really freaking weird.
All right, now I got to go find that.
Inner Space it is. Solid choice. I'm sad I won't be watching Indiana Jones, but maybe I'll find time to watch it anyway.
You're gonna like Inner Space. You're the only one who hasn't seen it. It's great.
Yeah, I've never seen it, so I'm glad we're crossing something new off of my list.
Right back to a Quaid.
All right, well, that's everybody's homework, and that is what we will be watching for the next episode of A Theater Near You. So I guess it's time to wrap it up, right?
Indeed.
Okay, A Theater Near You is part of the Geekade Podcast Network, and if you'd like to get in touch with us to share your comments, movie suggestions, or whatever, you can send us an email at mail@geekade.com. We can also be found on most social media outlets and the official Geekade Discord server, all of which can be found in our show notes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time in A Theater Near You.
Goodbye!
Hondo!
I like the way your planet feels. I like to smell the daffodils and taste the tasty earth meals. Then swim with timid harbor seals. Your planet's stocked with lots of beer. Plus I like actor Greg Kinnear. But there's one problem still here. I can't breathe in your atmosphere. I cannot breathe in your atmosphere. I cannot breathe in your atmosphere. My lungs are starting to sear. I cannot breathe in your atmosphere.